Today, I have the pleasure and privilege of telling you about one of the best days of my life, the day I got to visit Vanillaware headquarters in Osaka.
So at the end of March, I got married, and our honeymoon was in Japan for the first 2 weeks of April. And me being such an insane fan, I said, hey, you know what? Let's take a gamble and see if we can visit the Vanillaware studio.
Long story short, they said, hey, yeah, come by and see us. And my wife was also okay with taking some time to visit because she also really likes Vanillaware. So that day, April 10th, it was a little bit of a rainy day, and we killed some time in Namba, Dotonbori. We moved north to kind of downtown Osaka. This was about lunchtime, early afternoon, and the meeting was set up for about 4 p.m. So, we had some curry, went to an Al Cafe. We took it pretty slow because George apparently doesn't get to the Vanillaware offices sometimes until late afternoon, because he works late into the night. But goddamn, I was nervous. Every block we got closer. Like I was trying to be meditative. I was doing my combat breathing. Like, it's funny because my wife looked at me. She's like, "Why are you so nervous? Like, what's there to be nervous about?" And I said, "I don't know. I have no idea why I'm so jacked up about this. It's just, the idea that I'm finally going to meet somebody, meet these people rather, whose work I've been obsessed with for so long. And George himself, George Kamitani, somebody who I've admired for like 10 years now. Just that celebrity status kind of person in my life." So it was a little after 4, and we got the green light from inside to come on up. And I was standing there, right there in front of the sign, talking to them. A legendary moment. I'll never forget how hyped I was. So we go inside into the little vestibule at the front of their office, and who comes out to greet us but George Kamitani himself and head programmer Kentaro Onishi. This is the man right here. So I introduced myself and my wife, and they introduced themselves. They gave us our business cards. Their business cards are amazing, by the way. So we moved into this little side meeting room, and George sat us down, handed out some coffees that he brought for us. I dropped a big bag of gifts on the table. I brought them a bottle of my favorite locally distilled whiskey. I brought them some snacks I knew they didn't have in Japan for everyone in the office to share. I brought a letter that I wrote and I had translated by a friend of mine. Joel, thanks, buddy. This is your shout out. At the same time, George dropped a couple of bags of stuff on the table for us. And I was like, are those gifts for us? Like, anyway, so I'll talk about that in a second. So immediately, George slapped a laptop on the table and he fired up an in-development sequence of 13 Sentinels for us to look at. So it was one of the character Sekigahara stories, and I couldn't understand any of it because I don't really read Japanese that well and I speak it kind of badly. But my God, that game looks incredible. I mean, everything about it visually is astonishing. So from where I'm sitting, I think we can pretty much say it is a visual novel style game, but I think it's still got some secrets from us, so I don't want to assume that we've seen it all. Every bit of actual gameplay that I've seen has been dialogue and character interaction, though, and that's like 5 or 6 hours worth of the game now, including the unreleased bit that George showed us. So there's a character in 13 Sentinels named Morimura Sensei. She's like the busty teacher. And when she came on screen, I made a comment to George like, "Oh, I was like, like that's the character I like." And he said, "Hey, that character was designed by Hirai, like Yukiko Hirai." And George still remembers that fuss that was made over here in the West a couple years ago by a certain bunch of racist assholes and journalists who think that Japan's style of game needs to suit, their values. And he said something like, he's like, "Oh, Hirai designed that character, not me. I don't want them, that Hirai's the bad guy here, not me." Yukiko Hirai did the character designs for 13 Sentinels, which is why they have a slightly different appearance than George's usual style. As an example, here I have George's versions of the Odin Sphere characters on the left and Yukiko Hirai's versions on the right. Her artwork is pretty iconic to the brand, in my opinion. You can see it everywhere. George and Kentaro asked if they could look at the bag of stuff I brought for them, and they indicated that the 2 bags of stuff that they brought was for me. So in one bag was an in-box Parfum Mercedes figure, and in the other bag, it was loaded up with tons of rare merch, mostly like pre-order bonuses from past Vanillaware games that you can't get anymore. And even better, I didn't have any of it. Like, it was all new to me. Like, I'd seen it online on Japanese pre-order sites and stuff like that, but I didn't own any of it. So they gave me Odin Sphere stuff, Muramasa stuff, Grim Grimoire stuff, Dragon's Crown stuff. All of it is rare stuff is rare pre-order merch that you can't get anymore. I asked George to sign my 13 Sentinels prologue art book and also my Odin Sphere Leifdrasir art book that I brought a couple of days earlier when me and my wife were in Tokyo. We went to Akiba, and I went to Yodobashi Camera there, and I bought the 13 Sentinels prologue, like, in person. Like, I bought the physical copy with the art book and the soundtrack and stuff. And while I was there, actually, I also bought the figures of the 2 Fox girls from Muramasa, Yuzuruha and Kongiku.
The day we were there, I was wearing my Odin Sphere shirt from Atlas USA, the one with the Habana Aristo on it, and the one that came with the Odin Sphere Leifdrasir box. And we talked a little bit about shirt sizes, actually. I think it's because they're working on a shirt design to sell in the future that they showed me. We talked a little bit about games like Kumatanchi and Grand Knight's History that didn't make it over to North America. We talked a little bit about my YouTube videos, how I made them, how I recorded them.
George saw my copy of 13 Sentinels, and he looked at me and he asked, like, oh, will you be able to understand it? And I was like, probably not, but, I'll try. One thing that really struck me about George, I thought he might be kind of reserved and quiet like most of the artists that I know, but he was talking like the whole time. He's enthusiastic. He's a lot more open than I expected, and he's really enthusiastic about what he does, I think. George asked if we'd like to tour the office. So he made sure I understood that I wasn't supposed to tell anybody about what we saw there behind the closed doors. Because not only were they working on 13 Sentinel stuff, they're also working on the next game, which they teased in 13 Sentinels Prologue. If you haven't seen that yet, you can go check it out on one of my other videos here. Inside the office, though, it really looks like any other office. It looks kind of like, I suppose what you'd expect. There's desks everywhere, computer stuff. The only clues for me were the occasional, like, Vanillaware merch pieces sitting on somebody's desk and the stuff that they were working on their computers. Now, since I'm not allowed to say exactly what I saw there, because, I saw artists working on characters, enemies, interface screens, and that sort of thing, all I'll say is that it's definitely a Vanillaware game, and you won't be disappointed. It looks so cool. So we were kind of meandering around the office, and I'm, snooping on these staffers over their shoulders. I'm kind of shoulder surfing there. And a couple of the staffers noticed that we were there, and they were kind of looking at us like, who the fuck let these foreigners in, And, I'm taking it slow because I want to take it in, right? I want to really enjoy. I want to see how much I can see. When we went over to the side of the office that's working on 13 Sentinels, I saw a scroll hanging beside one of their desks of Alice and Socrates from Odin Sphere. And I grabbed my wife, and I was like, hey, look at that. It's Alice and Socrates from Odin Sphere. And the girl working at the desk, she turns towards me, and Kentaro Onishi, he says, hey, this is Yukiko Hirai. I was like, oh my god, like, Yukiko Hirai is like the second most talented person in this office, probably. Like, her work is amazing. And so of course, I introduced myself and said, oh, so I'm sorry to bother you. Like, I was just, I saw that cool poster, and I didn't, I wasn't trying to be rude. And then in the opposite corner of their little kind of area was Takehiro Shiga, who is another extremely talented artist working there, whose stuff you've almost certainly seen, and we also met him. After we did our little office walkthrough, we sat back down in the meeting room, and I said, thank you so much for letting us visit. George and I took a picture together in front of their little merch wall where they have, like, basically all their products that they've pushed in the past. So they got, Grand Knight's History stuff, Kumatanchi, Dragon's Crown, all that stuff on the wall. And so George and I took a picture in front of the wall there in the meeting room, but he asked that I not share it because he believes that an artist should not show their appearance because it can affect how people perceive the art that they make. So regrettably, I can't put the photo we took together in the video. And yeah, they said, hey, like let's meet again. So maybe if we go back there another time, they'll let us visit again. I don't know. With that, basically, we said our thanks and goodbyes, and we left. So I think I checked my phone when we left, and we were only there for like 30 minutes, maybe a little bit longer. But I mean, it was just such an exciting 30 minutes that it felt like forever. After we left, they let everyone read my letter, and they said that it was really encouraging, and everybody liked the food that we brought. Yeah, I mean, it was an unbelievable experience, and it was a chance that I'm extremely grateful for because not many other people in the world will ever have it. That was basically my day at Vanillaware. At the end, I would like to thank Queso-san because he was instrumental in helping us visit, and I hope we'll get to meet again. So if you're watching this video, you probably understand the kind of brand that Vanillaware has, and you know that the stuff they make is not really popular with a certain group of people over here in the West. Ironically, I learned from Onishi-san that Dragon's Crown was the Vanillaware game that sold the best. So I wonder if the bad press had anything to do with that. I said, there's a lot of worry that people have here that, studios like Vanillaware will have to change to suit Western pressure. And he basically told me that, well, we're a small studio and we're primarily focused on like the Japanese markets because, we're only 25, 30 people here, and the Japanese customers don't really care about that kind of shit. I said, hey, it's nice to hear that you guys aren't going to change because of because pressures from like these weird racist assholes that think that you guys are stupid and primitive and need to change your games to suit them. And he basically said, yeah, you don't have to worry because we only know one way to make video games.